Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good evening, everyone. It is Saturday, June the 1st, 2024. It is currently 6:18 p.m. Central Time. I had to look at the time. 6:18 p.m. Central Time. So let's do that again. Welcome, everyone. It is June the 1st, 2024. It is currently 6:18 p.m. Central Time, and I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, what if I was to play a news alert right now? Breaking news, breaking news, Fox News alert, CNN breaking news. Well, you name the network, but it's a breaking news alert. And some governmental leader, some leader who is in charge of the government, some president, some king, some ruler over a country, some leader in some capacity. He's a new leader. And he takes over and he tells an individual, hey, build you a house, but you have to stay right here. Build a house, stay right here. Now, if you ever leave this country, if you ever leave this area, you're going to die. Stay right here. Do not leave. And the individual's like, okay, I'm going to stay right here. 1 year passes. Everything's good. He doesn't leave. 2 year passes. He doesn't leave. He stays right where he's supposed to. 3 years. And suddenly this guy who built a house and is staying there because this governmental leader, this king, this president said, you have to stay here or die. He's like, he hears that he's got some property that's gone to another part of the world, another country. And so he immediately gets up, he leaves, he goes, gets his property, but he comes right back. He goes and gets his property, comes right back, and the leader finds out, the king finds out, the president finds out. It's like, that's it. I told you to stay. You left. You die. And he has him killed. What do you think? Well, the man was told to stay. He should have stayed. So, it makes perfect sense that he was killed. Are you like, makes sense? Or do you kind of go, well, wait a minute now. I think maybe there could have been a discussion. There could have been, maybe there could have been some other punishment handed down. Maybe there could be like, okay, you've got to tear your house down and you've got to leave and you can never come back. Maybe there could have been something but he was killed. I think most of us would be like, I don't know. That's probably kind of messed up. I think there would at least be some questions raised. Well, that kind of situation is the situation we have in front of us on this Saturday evening. Now, we all started this. Well, I started it, but you've been a part of it. It all started because, well, we're going to focus on the book of Proverbs for at least 30 days. And for the Sermons 2.0 app challenge, you're supposed to be looking up random sermons in the book for the book of Proverbs. Hopefully you've been participating. Hopefully that's going well. Haven't heard a lot of feedback on that, but hopefully it's going well. For us to really get started, we opened up our Bibles to Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1, where we read these words. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. And I'm like, okay, wait, the Proverbs of Solomon. We typically understand a Proverbs like these short little saying, right? It can be constructed in different ways, but a short little saying that kind of summarizes some important principle about wisdom. I know I'm kind of paraphrasing and I haven't given us a technical definition of a proverb yet, but that's okay. This kind of a short saying that summarizes some very important concept of wisdom. It's to impart wisdom. It's to give us understanding. It's to give us instruction. So when I see that it's the Proverbs of Solomon, some may say, well, that makes perfect sense because he's the wisest man. But I tend to go, wait a minute. Why Solomon? Because Solomon, for all of his wisdom, I think it's very fair to say, and I think this is an accurate critique, Solomon was the most extravagant fool in the entire Bible. For as extravagant or as great or as powerful or as complete as his wisdom was, his foolishness was just as powerful, complete, and full the same way. His foolishness is legendary. There's no way to get around it. When we consider Solomon, the man who's supposed to impart godly wisdom to us, right? This man that God chose to give us this wisdom. Well, the man he chose to give us this wisdom, the man he used to partake, or the man he used to give us, to present to us this wisdom, the man he chose was a man, let's make it very clear, a serial adulterer, a serial polygamist, a man who became an idolater, and a man who, well, was involved in some, I don't know, can we call them possibly questionable killings? A man who amassed great amounts of wealth. And we can ask ourselves, is that what the kings were supposed to do? Or were they warned against that? I don't know. You can look that up. There's so many questionable things. So why Solomon? So I thought, it'll be kind of fun. It'll be kind of interesting to just, hey, let's do a little background work. So I gave everyone a quiz. Very simple quiz. I haven't had a lot of people turn in the quiz, but I gave everyone a quiz. And one of the questions was, what advice did David give Solomon? Which took us to 1 Kings chapter 2. And the rest is history. We've been working on 1 Kings chapter 2. We have been working on it. And what we have found in 1 Kings chapter 2 is David tells Solomon the people he wants Solomon to kill. We see Solomon killing, someone that's not on David's list. And then we see Solomon killing the people David told him to kill. And what I find interesting in 1 Kings chapter 2 is there's really no meaningful discussion about God or seeking God's wisdom, God's counsel. We don't seem to have any direct revelation from God. In other words, God saying, hey, do this, don't do this. Like over and over and over in the Bible, God speaks to this person, God speaks to this person, God. There seems to be none of this. There doesn't seem to be any discussion of seeking God or God speaking. But yet there is killing going on. And again, it raises the question, why Solomon? Why is Solomon the man chosen by God to impart to us so that we can, in a sense, partake of this great wisdom? Why did God choose Solomon to be his vessel, ultimately to convey God's wisdom to us? Well, in some ways, I think it's the amazing contrast between the wisdom imparted by Solomon. Simply, it's God's wisdom imparted by Solomon to us through him writing these proverbs. I think it's the stark contrast of Solomon with the actual wisdom. Solomon is the living example of the opposite of the wisdom that he has given to us. I think that that's a powerful lesson. And some people, I think, want to undermine that. I think they want to minimize that. They want to be like, no. See, Solomon was the man who imparted this wisdom to us. God used him. Through Solomon, God gives us this wisdom and these proverbs. And that's because Solomon was so wise. Solomon was so wonderful. Solomon was so great. And almost like he's the example of the wisdom that he imparted. But I am not so sure of that. I think he serves as a contrast to it. But why Solomon? So we've been working on this chapter. Now, has this 6, 7 hours, whatever, how many hours I have to add it all up, of time spent in 1 Kings chapter 2, has it been successful? Well, based on probably the majority of comments, emails, it hasn't been. It's been an abysmal failure. And that's okay. That's okay. Because maybe other people have not found this to be beneficial, but I think the work that I have done in 1 Kings chapter 2, trying to be very meticulous, trying to go through it, trying to ask difficult questions. Maybe you could even accuse me of playing the devil's advocate. Maybe you could even accuse me of being very negative. You could even accuse me of being almost critical or skeptical. You may accuse me of that, but I think when it's all said and done, the work I have done and the questions I have raised and the things I've tried to force you to consider, think about, and try to reconcile in your own mind, I don't see how that is negative. Even if you disagree, I've at least put you in a position where you've had to think about it. You've had to consider. You may have had to look up other things. You've had to either justify your position, defend your position. So I think in that sense, there's something valuable in all of this. I'm at least, maybe that's my own, trying to convince myself that I have not wasted hours of my time. But I think we've done something very good. Now, there's a part of me, I'm just being honest with you. Okay, we went 1 Kings chapter 2. The original goal was just to look at the advice David gave Solomon at 1 Kings 2, 1 through 4. That's all we were going to do because that was a question in the quiz. And then in a sense, I wanted to get to chapter 3 when Solomon gets his wisdom, when he gets the wisdom, because I think there's a lot there we still need to unpack, right? We still need to work on it. That was the goal, but I could not. Then I was kind of like, well, David gives him advice here, but what's going on in 5 and following? David is still speaking. Well, it's kind of like, is he giving further advice? It's kind of like he's giving him, hey, here's some directives. Here's some things I want you to do. And it just turns out that what he, I continue to present this because it's somewhat, it's got to stand out to people. Here's David getting ready to die. And it's really his last words are kill, kill, kill. That's bizarre to me. Hey, I'm getting ready to die. And what I need you to do is here's this list. And I need you to kill these people on this list. Now, I'm not saying the list is pages long. I'm not saying the list is long. But let me state it this way. Here are some names of some people I want you to kill. That is somewhat, come on, it's something. We've got to consider that it's something there, right? I think we do. So there was a part of me that never wanted to get into this. And then once we got into it, I was so focused on, okay, how does this relate to Solomon? How does this relate to Solomon? That I wasn't really too interested in maybe the backstory of some of the individuals that David was asking Solomon to kill. There was a part of me that kind of was like, I want to focus on why Solomon? That's what we're trying to go for. That's the end. I've established that thesis 100 times. There's never been any, if anyone misconstrues what I've tried to do, that it's on them because I've been so repetitive, it's not even funny. But in so doing, then we kind of started missing the backstory. Well, then we did a sermon review that forced us into the backstory of some of these individuals, which then only raised the question even more, why Solomon? Because some of this is just so, I don't know. It's so weird. Some people read it like, what's the big deal? The kings kill people. That's great. They're almost as if they have some, they're good to go. And others kind of they really want to defend these actions. And I just don't know. I don't know why we feel the need to go to the defense of individuals in the Bible. Look, to me, the more you defend them and the more you undermine and minimize the fact that they're sinners, I think then makes the Bible that much more difficult for us to relate to. We're sinners reading about sinners. I can relate to that. If I turn these into one-dimensional, almost caricatures of what they really were, it's not even we turn them into something else. If we let them be real, then I think we can relate to it. But the point is, as we got into this, and it's just kind of becoming more and more, there's a part of me that's kind of like, I'm just done. Like, you know what? If I don't ever cover this again, nobody's going to care. But then there's another part of me that's like, I can't do that. We got to finish this. So ladies and gentlemen, we have to finish this. So are you ready to work with me to try to finish this? Are you ready? I'm hoping. I wish if I had an audience in front of me, I wish right now everybody would be like, absolutely. I wish they would applaud. Yes, we want to finish this. This has been amazing. Okay, maybe now I'm just being ridiculous because nobody's going to think this is amazing, but maybe someone would want to finish it. So are you ready to go through these really quick? All right, 1 Kings 2:5. We're just going to kind of a quick review. I'm not going to re-preach all of these or reteach these or re-discuss these, however you want to classify what I have done. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 5, of course, David is about to die, and he says, moreover, speaking to Solomon, you know also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, and what he did to the two commanders of the armies of Israel. Now, please note, what he did to me. Yeah, it's just funny because David is the end of his life, and he says, you know what you know also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me. And it's like, I want to scream at the text, hey, David, what about what he did for you? Like, trying to help you cover up your affair. But hey, let's forget what he did for you. Let's just remember what he did to you. And specifically, he was involved in the death of Absalom. But we won't get into everything, okay? So he says, hey, you know what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, all right? And then he talks about how he killed these commanders, Abner and Amasa, and we talked about them and maybe what Joab's motivations were here, and we talked about all of that. And so therefore, get down to verse 6, this is what David tells Solomon, do according to your wisdom, which I still think that's a fascinating phrase, right? Because this is like, hey, Solomon, act according to your wisdom. Hey, Solomon has not been given that godly wisdom at this point in time. Nobody seems to want to address that. He gets the wisdom in 3. So this is just, hey, act according to your wisdom, your fleshly wisdom. There's nothing here about, he doesn't tell him to seek God, just act according to your wisdom. As my son, here's your father. I'm dying, and this man did these things to me. Act according to your wisdom. I don't know how everyone can just play that down. I don't know. To me, that's a fascinating phrase. Okay, act according to your wisdom, and do not let his gray hair go down to the grave in peace. All right. So hey, that's Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Well, what happens? Well, look at chapter 2, verse 34. So Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, went up and struck and killed him, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. That's Solomon sends Benaiah, and Joab, the son of Zeruiah, is killed. So Solomon ultimately has him killed. We've talked about all the things involved in it, but he's killed. He's killed. All right. So after, there's David tells Solomon to kill him. Then much later, or sometime later, ultimately he is killed. All right, Joab is killed. Solomon sends Benaiah. He's killed. All right, we've talked about that. All right. Now Solomon then in verse 12. Now 1 Kings 2:12. Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was firmly established. So David tells him to kill Joab, the son of Zeruiah. He tells him to kill him. Sometime later, Solomon has him killed. After the throne is established, he's on the throne. He has Joab, the son of Zeruiah, killed. He has him killed. Gone. All right? Done. Then, after Solomon comes, so now we're going back. So David tells him to kill Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Solomon's throne is established. He's king. Later on, he kills Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Now going back. So he's going to kill. Now we're kind of going back to the next man he kills is Adonijah, the son of Haggith. Now this is Solomon's half brother. After he takes the throne, the half brother comes. He wants to marry a certain woman because this is possible a play for the throne. It's a play for him to be able to say, I deserve to be the throne. I should be there. You shouldn't be there, Solomon. And well, Solomon has him killed. Right? So Adonijah is mentioned in chapter 2, verse 12 or 13. All right. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Now he's going to die after this. So I'm doing them a little bit out of order, but I'm trying to keep them in order. And 2:5, David tells Solomon to kill Joab. He doesn't kill him till later on in chapter 2, where he sent, so Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, went up and struck and killed him. All right. So kills him later. In between the time David tells him to kill Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the time that Joab, the son of Zeruiah, is killed, in between that, Adonijah, the son of Haggith, Solomon's half-brother, comes. He wants to marry this woman. It's obviously a play for the throne. And guess what happens? That's 2:13. Look at 2:25. So King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he struck him down and he died. He kills Adonijah. So he ultimately, if we're going in order of killings, he kills Adonijah first, Then he kills Joab, the son of Zeruiah, if we're going in the order of killings. But if we're going in the order of who he was told to kill first, David tells him to kill Joab, the son of Zeruiah, which he kills later on. In between killing Joab, Adonijah is killed. So 2 down, right? One David tells him to kill. The other one he decides to kill on his own, right? So both times killed. And none of these killings do we see anyone calling upon God. We don't see God giving any direction. We don't have anything like that. Just, hey, and I think the key phrase is, therefore do according to your wisdom. I think Solomon is acting according to his wisdom, which is all about protecting his rule, protecting his reign, protecting his throne, maybe carrying out vengeance or revenge for his father. Whatever the case may be, I think there's a lot of earthly, fleshly wisdom being instituted here. And don't tell me it's God's wisdom, because if he already has God's wisdom here, then what's the point of chapter 3? All right, so do we have that straightened out? Hopefully. All right. I know I didn't mean to confuse it more than I needed to, but I just wanted to ensure that David tells him to kill this person. He kills him way over here. In between that, he kills his half brother. But wait, there's more. Look at 1 Kings 2:8. David now. We're back to David, still talking to Solomon. And see, you have with you Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim, who cursed me with a malicious curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at the Jordan, and I swore to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. So David's like, this man cursed me. Shimei, he cursed me. He cursed me when I was at Mahanaim. He cursed me at that point in time, but then he came down to meet me at the Jordan. Now, we can read about this account in 2 Samuel chapter 19, where Shimei comes to him and basically says, hey, I'm sorry, forgive me. And David's like, okay, I'm not going to kill you, right? And it's even repeated right here. He came down to meet me at the Jordan, and I swore to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. David promised him, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to kill you. In fact, you can go to 2 Samuel chapter 19. You can go to 2 Samuel chapter 19, just if you want to see this, how it played out. 2 Samuel chapter 19, verse 15. This is verse 15, right? So Shimei has... He cursed David, right? He did a number of things to him, and we could go through the whole story, but he does these things, and look what it happens here. Then the king returned and came to Jordan. This is 2 Samuel 19:15. And Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to escort the king across the Jordan. And Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, who was from Bahurim, hurried and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. There was 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba, the servants of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and his 20 servants with him. And they went over to the Jordan before the king. Then a ferry boat went across to carry over the king's household and to do what he thought good. Now Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king when he had crossed the Jordan. Then he said to the king, do not let my lord impute iniquity to me. Hey, don't impute iniquity to me. Now, this is a very interesting use of language here. Do not impute iniquity to me. Why is that language so interesting? Because here's someone saying this to David. Hey, David, don't impute iniquity to me. Well, why is that interesting language? Can anyone tell? I want to be, if I was at church, I would just stop the entire sermon right here until someone can answer this question. Why is this interesting language? Hey, don't impute iniquity to me. Because the exact language is in Romans chapter 4. We've talked about this. Romans chapter 4. To me, this is absolutely fascinating. Romans chapter 4. What then shall we say that Abraham our father has found according to the flesh? For if Abraham was justified by works, he had something to boast about, but not before God. For what does Scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as debt. But to him who does not work, but believes on him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is accounted him for righteousness. Just as David also describes the blessedness of the man to whom God imputes righteousness apart from works. Blessed are those whose lawless deeds are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Lord shall not impute sin. This is all about imputing righteousness and not imputing sin. David is used as the one who, David also describes the blessedness of the man whom God imputes righteousness apart from works. God imputed righteousness to David apart from works because David's works were not always righteous. So God imputed righteousness to him, did not infuse it, but imputed it, accredited it to his account apart from works. And then it quotes, blessed are those whose lawless deeds are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man whom the Lord shall not impute sin. Don't impute. We are blessed when God does not impute sin to us, does not accredit sin to our account. Well, when does God not accredit sin to our account? When we put our faith in him, then our faith, he imputes righteousness and not our sin. Now, go back here. So then Shimei comes and says, Lord, do not let my Lord impute iniquity to me. Don't impute iniquity to me. Don't accredit to me iniquity. Don't accredit to me sin. Don't accredit to me wrong. All right, and then look what he says. Do not let my Lord impute iniquity to me, or remember what wrong your servant did on the day that my Lord, the king, left Jerusalem, that the king should take it to heart. Hey, do not impute my wrong to me. Forget my wrong. No longer remember my wrong. For I, your servant, know that I have sinned. Therefore, here I am, the first to come today of all the house of Joseph, to go down to meet my Lord the king. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? So Abishai is like a good churchgoer. Wait a minute. This guy can't just be forgiven. He needs to be put to death for what he did. Come on. Impute iniquity unto him. Come on. Accredit to his account his sin. He deserves it. And David said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah, that you should be adversaries to me today? Shall any man be put to death today in Israel? For do I not know that today I am king over Israel? Therefore the king said to Shimei, you shall not die. And the king swore to him. And the king swore to him, you're not going to die. Wow, that sounds like David did not impute sin to him. He did not accredit his sin to Shimei's account. He forgot the things he had done. That's a beautiful story. Here's David. He does not impute Shimei's sin to his account. In fact, he forgets and says, hey, you're not going to die. Beautiful story. But then when we go back to 1 Kings chapter 2, we go back to 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 8. David's on his deathbed. And you have with you Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite from Baharem, who cursed me with a malicious curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. Now, and again, all of a sudden he remembers. He remembers what he's done. Wait a minute. David is going to be used as the man whom God does not impute his sin to him, but imputes righteousness. Because David deserves to die. David deserves to die. He had a man killed to cover up his affair. David has multiple wives. David has concubines. David has done plenty of things. The Bible speaks of David. God imputed righteousness to him. Blessed is the man whom God does not impute iniquity, who does not impute sin. Now, Shimei came to him, confessed, acknowledged his sin, and said, do not impute, iniquity to me. Do not impute my sin to me. Forgive me. Do not remember. And David's like, good. It's forgotten. But wait a minute. Now, all of a sudden, David's like, wait a minute. I remember exactly what he did. I remember exactly that he cursed me, and I even remember where it occurred. Mahanaim. I know exactly where it occurred. Now look what he says. But David even remembers, I said, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now this is crazy. Verse 9. And then David is like, now therefore do not hold him guiltless. For you are a wise man. Now here he is. Here's again. Use your wisdom, Solomon. Use your wisdom. No. It's chapter 3 where he's going to get that wisdom. This is telling Solomon to act in his own natural wisdom. I don't know how anyone can ignore this. David is telling Solomon, act according to your wisdom. Now, therefore, do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man and know what you ought to do to him, but bring his gray hair down to the grave with blood. What in the world? Why does David decide that the man deserves to die? Like, I think I know people can say, well, he's just the king. He can do whatever he wants. Come on. He swore to the man he's not going to be put to death. Now I know whatever he's going to play, but he said he wouldn't do it. He didn't say his son couldn't have him killed. I mean, come on. Are we going to really play that kind of game? You're talking about a human being. So, David tells him to kill Joab, the son of Zeruiah. We read about that later on in chapter 2. In between the death of Solomon having Joab, the son of Zeruiah, killed, he kills his half-brother Adonijah. David also tells him to kill Shimei. After Solomon kills Adonijah, he has Joab killed, and then look what happens. So Solomon kills Adonijah. He has Joab. And when I say he kills them, he has them killed. Adonijah and Joab, the son of Zeruiah. After he has those killed, look what happens. Oh, here we go. 1 Kings 2:36. This is so crazy. I don't even know how you feel about this. To me, the story is so fascinating because it literally, in the story of Shimei, you have that exact language. Do not impute my iniquity. Do not impute it. The exact language used in Romans 4. It's so fascinating that it's the exact language. David did not impute his iniquity to him, forgave him, and said, I'm not going to kill you. And then all of these years later, David's like, well, I do remember. I am going to impute iniquity to him, and I want you to have him killed. But use your wisdom, Solomon. He doesn't say, seek God. No. There's nothing about God in any of this. Now he wants him dead. So Solomon, again, kills Adonijah, kills Joab, the son of Zeruiah. And here we go. And this is the point where I'm reading this, right? When I read these words, because I try to read the text as if I've never read it before. And even when I speak about it, when I try to teach it, I try to act like I've never had anything to do with the text ever. Because to me, it tries to make it more real, right? So that I can continue to see it with fresh eyes. So after all, now I'm all through this. 1 Kings 2, people are dying. David's telling people to have killed. I'm trying to process all of it. And then I read these words. Then the king, that's Solomon, because David has passed on. Then the king sent and called for Shimei. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Solomon's going to call Shimei and he's going to be like, hey, how's things going? I remember my dad, told me I remember my dad, forgiving you, but I got some bad news for you. He wants you dead. So, before he passed, he told me to have you killed. So when I read the king sent and called for Shimei, I'm like, oh, no. Now I know Shimei, Solomon, or maybe Solomon, maybe Solomon's going to be like, hey, my dad told me to have you killed, but I mean, my dad promised you that he wouldn't kill you. So, I can't do it. I got like maybe so, I don't know. I have all kinds of conflicting thoughts at this point, but all right, here we go. Solomon sent and called for Shimei, and he said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and do not go out from there anywhere. For it shall be on the day you go out and cross the brook Kidron, know for certain you shall surely die. Your blood shall be on your own head. Now, this is kind of this is odd to me. Shimei apologized. Shimei confessed. David himself did not impute his iniquity to him. David himself said, I'm not going to kill you. So then Solomon shows up and like, hey. Now here's, I got some good news for you. You can build a house. I got some good news. As long as you stay there, you're okay. Now you go across the brook Kidron, I'm going to kill you. And it's going to be your fault. That just seems so like, what is going on? Why? Now, again, every reader is going to approach us. I'm going to get emails going, well, it was justified. This is the right thing to do. He should have given him those restrictions. Because remember, it's weird. Like in some stories, Christians read it and like, we want mercy and we want grace. And in other stories, we're like, they deserve to die. And I'm glad they died. Well, just remember, David deserves to die. Okay. David deserves to die. If we're going to start saying who deserves to die, David deserves to die. Moses deserved to die. If you shed blood, your blood should be shed. Was that not the Old Testament? Oh, but it's okay because God is a merciful God. But then when those people have someone killed, well, it's all good. Isn't it really weird how we kind of play? So our morality can be so subjective when we read and study the Bible. So David, the man who deserved to die, but God did not impute iniquity. See, this is what I think we get. When God, I think maybe some people won't like this lesson. When God doesn't impute iniquity to us, and imputes righteousness, that's forever. But when a human king, says, I'm not going to impute your sin to you, that's temporary. Because, well, Shimei is in trouble. But at least Solomon, I guess we can give him some credit here, right? Hey, just build your house and stay. And then you're good to go. And so you're kind of like, okay, well, now is Solomon guilty here of not following his father's wishes? Like, I mean, there's a lot of questions that come up here, right? I mean, should he not do this? Now, but again, I think Solomon's acting in his wisdom here. I think that's the whole point. So when Shimei builds the house, and look what he says in verse 38. And Shimei said to the king, the saying is good. As my lord the king has said, so your servant will do. So Shimei dwelt in Jerusalem many days. And you're like, okay, Shimei, whew, you made it. You confessed. David did not impute your iniquity to you. And he swore to you he would never kill you. I have no idea why he wanted you killed, a few verses back. But hey, it looks Solomon is going to give you a chance. So man, that's great, Shimei. I hope your life goes good. Just stay there. Stay, Shimei. Stay. No. Stay. Do not move. Stay right there. What happens? Now, it happened at the end of 3 years. So 3 years, he stays right there. There's no trouble. He stays there for 3 years. That 2 slaves of Shimei ran away to Achish, the son of Maacah, king of Gath. And they told Shimei, saying, look, your slaves are in Gath. So he has slaves. Now we can get back into the morality of slavery, but we won't get into that. There's so many issues in the Bible. All right. But hey, your slaves are gone. That's his property, at least in that particular culture. It's gone. And he's like, oh no, I've got to go get it. That's been 3 years. He's not done anything wrong. There's not any record here of any trouble. Now, if there's some other passage that we should bring into it, I love to leave that for you to find out. Okay. But you can go search. All right. Here we go. So they tell him, hey, look, your slaves are in Gath. So Shimei arose, saddled his donkey and went to Achish at Gath to seek his slaves. And Shimei went and brought his slaves from Gath. And so he went and got him, and he came right back. He went, he's not going to start an insurrection. He's not going to try a rebellion. He goes and gets his slaves and come back. And Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath, and he had come back. Then the king sent and called to Shimei and said to him, "Did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you, saying no for certain, that on the day you go out of the travel, out and travel you anywhere, you shall surely die?" Now, you could argue that, hey, Shimei knew the rules. But there's no place for mercy. There's no place for anything, Solomon. There's no place, because I'm sure Solomon's going to do everything right, correct? Well, no, he's not. I'm sure your father did. Oh, well, your father didn't do everything right either. This is what happens. "And you said to me, the word I have heard is good. Why then have you not kept the oath of the Lord and the commandment that I gave you?" Then the king said, moreover to Shimei, "You know, as your heart acknowledges all the wickedness that you did to my father David." Now, all of a sudden, remember, hey, don't impute my iniquity to me. Now, Solomon brings up the very iniquity that he had done to David. But did he not confess? Was he not forgiven for that? David said, "Hey, I'm not going to kill you for that." But now Solomon, but then David wanted him killed. But then Solomon brings up those old things. He's going to bring up his past. "Therefore, the Lord will return your wickedness on your own head." Now God's being utilized, of course, to justify what's about to happen, but we have no any seeking God, or even God even speaking anything about what they should do here. And then here's what happens. "But King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be blessed, established before the Lord forever." Hey, wickedness is going to come on you, but for us, we're going to be blessed, because I know Solomon and David were such wonderful guys. So the king commanded Benaiah, there he is again, the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck him down, and he died. These stories are so crazy. Now, one commentary, they kind of summarized, this is how they summarized everything about Shimei. "Shimei was a man of the tribe of Benjamin who cursed King David during a time of distress, displaying his loyalty to the house of Saul. After Solomon became king, he ordered Shimei not to leave Jerusalem under the threat of death. However, Shimei eventually violated the command by pursuing two of his escaped servants, leading to his own death." All right. This is what they say. Shimei's story serves as a reminder of the importance of obedience, loyalty, and the consequences of defying authority. This outline captures the key events in Shimei's life as portrayed in 1 Kings 2, highlighting his actions, consequences, and ultimate fate. Now, I'm going to do something really quick. I'm going to search for something. I'm going to see here. Give me 1 second. I'm looking something up because I'm just curious and what answer I'm about to get. I'm asking AI why David changed his mind about killing Shimei. Now, Now, see, okay, wait a minute. This all speaks of all good things, right? David changed his mind about killing Shimei for several reasons: mercy and forgiveness, recognition of human frailty, avoiding further bloodshed, divine intervention, personal growth. So they're talking about, hey, when he could have killed him earlier on, he didn't. But they're overlooking what happens later. Hang on. Hang on, give me 1 second here. I'm gonna challenge AI here. Okay, because they're like, hey, yeah, he did. King David was such a great guy. He didn't kill him back there in Samuel, in 2 Samuel. Yeah, the AI doesn't have any answer. He's like, yeah, well, he did change his mind. And, well, hey, so when he didn't kill him the first time, AI is like, hey, David was such a great guy. He was merciful and great. Well, he turned around and changed his mind in 1 Kings chapter 2. But we don't really have a good answer. It just says this directive from David was seen as a way to address the past betrayal and ensure justice was carried out, given Shimei's actions. Ultimately, this set the stage for Solomon's decision regarding Shimei's fate. AI doesn't even know what to do. Why did he change his mind? Now, that's what I want you to figure out. Why did David change his mind? That's just an extra bonus question for you to figure out. Well, what do we do with this story? What do we do with all of these stories? It's just death, 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 death. I don't have any great answer, right? Again, to me, the most important part of it is it demonstrates Solomon, the one who's going to, in a sense, impart to us God's wisdom. He's the vessel God uses to impart his wisdom to us in this thing we call Proverbs. That Solomon stands as a contrast to the Proverbs because he was an extravagant fool and in many cases acted completely contrary to godly wisdom, and he acted according to his own earthly, fleshly, sensual, devilish, demonic kind of wisdom that would be described in the book of James. And I think that contrast is important to us, right? That you can know God's wisdom. You may even possess God's wisdom, but at any moment in time, you can act completely contrary to it, which I think demonstrates our own human frailty and our sinfulness. But with the Shimei story, I'm kind of struck by something. And I'm not saying that this is the original intent of the original author here. I'm just speculating wildly here. All right. We know that whenever we read the Old Testament and all of these historical narratives, we know one thing governs so much of it. And what governs it is very much a law-based mindset. Right? Very much. All of it is very much under a law-minded mindset, which means do this or die. Do this or die. Do this or die. Many of the civil laws in Israel were very, very much do this. Do this. God gave commandments that if someone does this, they're to be put to death. If they do this, they're to be put to death. There's a lot of, well, I don't necessarily want to use the word lot. There is killing connected with the law. If you violate the law, you die. God tells Israel to go in and kill people. There's a lot of killing and death in the Old Testament. There's no way to get around it. But I think that's because its function, its economy, its world view is law-minded. It's law. I'm not in any way diminishing the presence of grace, mercy, and forgiveness. And even there, we read that God, we see it at times, God did not impute David's iniquity to him. He did not impute Abram's iniquity to him. Both were saved by grace alone without works. But the economy of the Old Testament is very law-based, and it happens over and over and over and over. And guess what? In 1 Kings chapter 2, I think we see with Shimei, we see, and I think in all of these, we see kind of a picture of this, right? When we live and operate under the economy of the law, when we live under a law-based mindset, the law demands absolute and total perfection. If you mess up, if you violate anything, if you do anything that would be, in a sense, a threat to the authority of the law, if you do anything contrary to the authority of the law, you deserve to die. The law demands perfection. The law does not offer any mercy, any forgiveness. It's not there to communicate and have a discussion. It's not going to come up. It's not going to grade on a curve. And all of the situation in 1 Kings, boom, there's Solomon. He's now king. All right. David tells you to kill these people. All right. Which again is very much a law. Even if David had forgiven someone, he still wants them dead, because the law, under the law, there's never forgiveness under the law. The law only condemns. So David, in a sense, acts like the law here. Hey, doesn't matter if you're forgiven. The law still condemns you, right? The law always will condemn us. We have to have something else other than just the law. But then Solomon comes to power. What does he do? Well, as soon as he perceives a threat from his own half brother, he sees a threat to his power, his position, his throne. Boom, gots to die. You got to get rid of him. Then he goes after Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and then he dies, right? And so we see that starting in verse 28. The news came to Joab, and he defected to Adonijah, though he had not defected to Absalom. So Joab fled. Joab had kind of aligned himself with Adonijah. Now he's like, oh no, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So where does he go? He runs to the altar. He runs to the tabernacle of the Lord to hide in there. And Solomon's like, the law doesn't care that you're hiding in the tabernacle. The law doesn't care if you're hiding in the church. The law says, die. And Solomon has him killed. Then he calls Shimei. Hey, Shimei, come, do that. Shimei messes up. Boom, dies. The death of all of these individuals shows you what life is like under the law. Under the law, you know what you deserve? Death. You know what the law says? Die. And the law may even be justified in calling for your death, because guess what? You are a threat. In a sense, are not, well, let me say it this way. I don't like to say a threat, because that would seem to imply that God is weak and can be overthrown. You are a rebel to God's authority. You are a rebel to God's power. Now, if you had your way in your sinful nature, you would overthrow him and you would take the throne. And God does not tolerate rivals, and he does not tolerate rebels. His law calls for it to be put down. That's what the law calls for. So under the law, people are going to die. Death. Now, it shows how sinful people can use the law to kill people. We could have a discussion there, because under the law, David and Solomon should be dead. Right? Yes or no? David should be put to death, right? Didn't he not have someone killed? Yes or no? Should they be put to death? I'm giving you a chance to think about it. What do you think? What do you think? If I can spell correctly. I'm looking something up to verify something. If I can spell correctly. There we go. All right, I'm going to look something up. Do they both deserve to die under the law? If a man commits adultery, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death. That's in Leviticus chapter 20. Deuteronomy 22 similarly emphasizes the seriousness of adultery and prescribes the death penalty for both parties. David was an adulterer. Solomon was an adulterer. Now, you could argue, well, maybe was Solomon actually an adulterer? Now we could get into some semantics here, right? I mean, David, when he took Bathsheba, she belonged to someone else. So, okay, all right, that's clearly adultery. Solomon just had multiple wives. So are we now, because we got to be very careful here, right? Because if we're going to say, well, Solomon didn't really commit adultery because he was sleeping with women who did not belong to anyone else. There were his concubines, they weren't married to anybody else, and his other wives were only married to him. So it wasn't really adultery. So then we're saying that a married man can sleep with all the women he wants as long as the other women are single. Well, so see, now you get yourself, now how are we really going to define it, right? Now are we going to play some game? I think most would say he's an adulterer because he is sleeping with multiple women, right? What was the punishment for idolatry? So, well, I think we could argue that both of these men probably deserve to be put to death as well. So we could get into a whole argument about the morality here, but I think when we look at it, the whole point of this story in 1 Kings 2 is death, 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 death. Why is there so much death and killing? Because this is what happens under the law. So what's our only hope? Under the law, condemnation and death. That's where you deserve to die and I deserve to die. Under God's law, you deserve death and I deserve death. And if you don't think you do, you don't understand God's law. We are rebels. We try to overthrow God and remove him from the throne to place ourselves there. We want to supplant God with ourselves. We want to rule. We want to reign just like these other people did. And the law says no is not going to tolerate any rebellion, and anyone trying to overthrow. So our hope goes back to, let me read it to you again. What then shall we say? That Abraham our father has found according to the flesh? For if Abraham was justified by works, he would have something to boast about, but not before God. For what did the scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. What was accounted to him for righteousness? Believing in God. Righteousness was accredited to his account, not infused into him, but imputed to him. Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as debt. But to him who does not work, none of us can do work that would even come close to what we're supposed to do, because the law only condemns us. But he who believes on him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is accounted for righteousness, just as David also describes the blessedness of the man to whom God imputes righteousness apart from works. Blessed are those whose lawless deeds are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Lord shall not impute sin. The law, you're condemned. You die. You should die. You should die. You should die. You should die. The law will breathe to its very last breath. Kill, kill, kill. Death, death. The wages of sin is death. Those who violate the law deserve to die. Our only hope is not an earthly king, because in many cases we're not going to find true hope. We're not going to find salvation in anyone other than God, because these earthly kings, what they do here is questionable at best, and it's absolutely criminal at worst. It's absolutely sinful in some cases. And in many cases, Solomon uses God, the guise of God or righteousness, to justify some of these actions where the motives are greatly questionable. And there's definitely no sign of mercy or grace. I think we get so bothered in I think we work so hard to defend these actions, justify these actions, instead of letting these actions say, man, this is some messed up stuff here. But that's kind of the way it works under the law. We are just put to death. We're going to be put to death. But that's it. So what have we found? Well, if we go through this, we read of Joab, the son of Zeruiah. David wants him killed. Solomon has him killed. We read of, I'm going to go in the order as it's listed here. We read of, so there's Joab, the son of Zeruiah. Then we read of Shimei, the son of Gurah, a Benjamite from Bahurim. David wants him dead. Solomon has him killed. We read of Adonijah, the son of Haggith, Solomon's half-brother. Solomon has him killed. And thus the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. There we go. Now, in chapter 3, Solomon made a treaty with the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and married Pharaoh's daughter. Right there, chapter 3, verse 1. Very next thing. Very next verse. Very next verse. Solomon is making a treaty with the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married Pharaoh's daughter. Is that right? Is that biblical? Or is Solomon going against what God told him to do? Immediately. Now, if it is, now I'm going to leave that to you. So I'm going to leave you with two questions. Why did David change his mind about Shimei after he said he was not going to impute iniquity to him? Why did he forgive him? Right? So that's number one. Number two, in chapter 3, verse 1, Solomon immediately makes a treaty with the king of Pharaoh and he marries his daughter. Is that now the man who's supposedly carrying out justice, the man who is supposedly having people killed, who were like, it's all good and it's all right, instantaneously? What does he do in chapter 3, verse 1? I want you to find scripture that either justifies what he does in chapter 3, verse 1 or condemns it. If it's condemned, don't you then go, the one killing other people for a mistake or a sin or something wrong didn't last very long, did he? Because this is very important. Those of us who use the law to condemn and destroy other people, we're the very people who violate it. But you tell me if what he did was right or if what he did was wrong. Email me, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. There's more we will say. We'll say it at the right time because we're already at 61 minutes. So another hour of teaching. We didn't answer a lot of questions. Sorry. I know there was kind of like a little, I wasn't really thinking of the order there, you know. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, then Shimei. It's kind of a little out of, you know. So I don't know. I think it all worked. All right. Newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. Everyone have a wonderful Saturday evening, and hopefully church goes well for you tomorrow. God bless.